And just another note, please make sure that you are using the Q&A for your questions. Of course, any comments you have, you can put in the chat, but it's easier to see your questions in the Q&A box, which is open already. And separately, we have captions already enabled. So if you need those, you can have those on screen. At the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see the 3 dots or show captions section where you can do that. So please feel free to add those if you need them. I wanted to wait for everyone, but I think we want to kick off. We get through all our amazing content. So Eleanor, I will hand over to you now.
Of course.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us today. And thank you to Annabelle and Ash, who are also part of this team that will deliver today's session. Really excited to be here and to tell you a little bit about how to build your professional brand on LinkedIn and how to search for jobs, an internship on the platform, and to build your professional network, because these are things that personally have helped me a lot. The platform has helped me to actually move from the charity sector into the tech sector and kind of rebrand myself, if you like. And so I'm very passionate about this, and I hope I can share with you some useful tips today that you can start doing from tomorrow. So Annabelle, if we can move to the next slide. So a little bit about LinkedIn and the scale of this platform. So first of all, our vision is to create economic opportunities for the global workforce. And I think it's important to understand kind of the mission and the vision behind this network when we're using it, because this is really there for you to use to access opportunities. And this is what everybody on the platform are there for, and that's what everybody expecting you to do. So I'm just saying it in the sense of it's okay to approach people cold or message them if you have a specific ask, if you think you can add value to them. And so just keep it at the back of your mind, that mission and vision of why it started. And in terms of scale, we have 1 billion members. So that's really opens up a whole wide global network for you to tap into. We have 67 million companies. And again, mentioning that because this is an amazing tool for you to follow companies that you're interested in. And we'll talk about this a bit later on. We have 65 million weekly job seekers. So there are loads of jobs that are being posted on the platform and jobs that you can apply to. 41,000 skills that are registered on the platform. And this is a great thing that I'm extremely passionate about, because we always talk about transferable skills and how we can shift from one industry to another. And LinkedIn really allows you to show what skills you have that can be transferred to another industry. And 134,000 schools and universities that you can, again, follow and see what the alumni were doing, and in that way to build your network. And in the UK, just kind of a fun fact, we have 38 million UK members. So that's a really vast platform. So I'm gonna start a little bit by talking about what is professional brand, because we mentioned that phrase a lot and it's almost like a buzzword, but I tried really to break it down for you to understand what it means, or at least how I see that, and then how it translates on the platform. So when we talk about a professional brand, which is really how we present ourselves in terms of our values, our experience, our skills, and also our network. What is the network and the people that we surround us? And the good thing is really that all these 4 components are very easily to communicate on a platform like LinkedIn. The values are things that you can show by, for example, highlight, what you're volunteering at, or specific areas in your work that you're passionate about. Experience is very straightforward. You have a whole section about experience. Skills and knowledge, this is something that you can talk about when you share content, insights, or also actually tagging specific skills that you have, and your network, the network that you are really strategically following or connecting to. Now, why should we even be on LinkedIn? And this is actually, a question that especially people who are starting off, perhaps used to, other networks, and feel that they're very active on other networks. So why should they even make an effort on a platform like LinkedIn? So I can tell you also, by being in the job market and searching for jobs myself, LinkedIn is really almost as a source of truth. So if someone is a professional, is not on LinkedIn, it's very hard to validate, their experience, what they're passionate about, who they are, if they are who they say they are. So it's almost like a validation of your identity, but also of your credibility. And also, more than 50% of opportunities come from our network, and largely, as you could see from the scale of LinkedIn and the network there, you are very likely to find opportunities, whether it's through certain people or job that are posted. This is, by the way, how I found the job at LinkedIn, by seeing it on the job post. And it's a very dynamic platform. So unlike a CV that is kind of fixed, and yes, you can tailor it a little bit, the professional brand that you build yourself on LinkedIn is very dynamic. You can reshare content and edit it and add videos and kind of really represent yourself in so many ways, that I think it speaks to to who you are in a very stronger and show yourself in a very kind of colorful way, and not kind of one-dimensional as a CV. And today we're going to basically take a look on how to build our professional brand and how to really fine-tune it, because we find that the more the professional, your profile on LinkedIn, the more it is complete, the more it is accurate, the more you get a chance to be seen. And then we're going to dive into connecting. So connecting, this is very much about how you cultivate a network that can really serve you and that you can serve the network. And then engaging, and this is an area that I'm very passionate about, and this will be led by Ash, who is here to talk to us about how we can share content that can add value to our community, and in that way we can attract more people and the right people into our network. So let's start with building our LinkedIn profile. Some of you, and again, I don't know kind of the level of proficiency on LinkedIn and how active you are. Some of the things that I'll say are quite straightforward, but I thought I'll mention them anyway because it's important. And actually people who are even, been using the platform for years say to me, oh, actually good that you remind me to update my profile photo or to update my headline. So we're going to whiz through that, and then I'll pass it on to Annabelle, who will talk to you about building your network and searching for opportunities. So in terms of fine-tuning your profile. So first of all, we've got the photo that we're going to talk about and how it should look like. We have the cover photo, which really stands behind your profile photo. And here I'll just like to kind of double click on the cover photo, because we're going to touch on the other part later on. When it comes to the cover photo, I think it's such an important real estate on our profile, because it really allows us to express ourselves in a creative way and show, either what we're strong at, what we want to do. So for example, if someone is passionate about public speaking, they can put a photo behind them of themselves public speaking. If they're passionate about books and reading, they can do that. So there are no rules about that, and it really gives you the creativity to showcase what you're about and your professional brand. Then we have the headline, which we're going to talk about. And again, this is a really, really important part, because the headline that's just below your name, this is the first thing that people see when they're searching for people who are perhaps similar to you. So they will see your photo, your name, and your headline. So again, important to get it right and to use the right keywords for that. And by the way, this is even if you don't have a a job right now, if you're looking for something, then it's also important to use words like aspiring to do something. So basically, important to have the keywords of the industry that you want to get into. And then there is the about section, which is really a summary of who you are and what you do or what you want to do. And we have also the featured media that is just below that. And the featured media is basically a section that you can pin any posts or any videos or images that you want people to see kind of first thing that when they look at your profile. These are things that really stand out. And you can edit it and you can basically reorder these. And again, this is really, really a great feature because in a way, we are very visual. We like visuals, and this featured segment really helps us to connect to other people quite easily. So if we kind of dig deeper into a few of those sections, and I see I have a couple of more minutes, so we can go through the profile photo. So thanks, Annabelle. Profile photo, very briefly, just need to show your face. If you can smile, just imagine kind of first impression, how you'd like to see other people and how you kind of relate to other people. And it needs to be professional as much as possible. Professional does not mean a suit, but it just means to really focus on your face and not maybe surfing in the sea. That's I guess what we mean. Then when it comes to a headline, as I mentioned briefly before, it is, even if you don't have a job right now, you really could use, and I put some examples here, that you can use keywords of the job or the industry that you want to get into or what you want to do. This is really important because those keywords will be read by the system, and you can then be surfaced for any recruiter or any someone from the network that is interested in people like you. Then we have the about section. And the about section, there are no hard rules about that, but just generally speaking, I like to think about it in 3 segments. So the first one is 1 to 2 sentences about who you are, very, very briefly, or what you want to do. And then 3 to 5 sentences about your experience. And again, appreciate that many of you are at the beginning of their journeys. Put some things that, for example, you volunteered for or project that you've done. Think through your experience, not just in a professional setting, but also outside of work. Things that will show what you're about, that will demonstrate excellency. And then at the end, you can put a bit more flavor into that. So your passion, your hobbies, anything that you think can be relevant for people to understand who you are. And then if we move to the next slide, the featured we covered, so we can, this is actually something that I did not know and that I share a lot with people. This, add your industry and location. Otherwise the profile is not complete, and it's a shame because you will not necessarily surface when people are looking for people in the UK, for example, and in certain industries. And when it comes to the experience, just a couple of sentences here. Show some skills. You can write some skills that for each job or each internship that you did. Add those skills. You can add also any links or media to each job that you have, and try as much as possible. If you do have a job or some kind of an experience, try and quantify your impact as much as possible, and write in bullet points what you were doing and what you've achieved to help other people really understand your experience and your success in your role. So that's for me, and I'll pass it on to Annabelle. We'll
Thank you,
talk about building your network. Thank you, Annabelle.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name's Annabelle Pegg. I've been at LinkedIn just over 8 years now, and I work in our sales organization. So my role is to get our products into the hands of as many customers as possible. Prior to that, I was working in recruitment. So I was recruiting people into the digital space and placing them into companies. So hopefully I can share some insights on building your network and applying to jobs to help you with your job search. So the first thing we need to think about is you've built your profile, but now it's about getting your profile in front of as many people as possible. But when we say as many people as possible, we want that to be quality. So we want you to be reaching the right people that can help you progress your careers. So did you know that 50% of hires come from a personal connection? Now, when we say personal connection, this is what we're tracking on LinkedIn. So we're looking at individuals who join a company and have a LinkedIn connection of someone at that company. So we've got different levels of connections at LinkedIn. If you've already got a profile, you probably connected with some people in your first degree. So that might be some peers. It might be some people you've worked at. That's your first degree connections. The second degree are your connections of your connections. And your third degree are your connections of your connections of your connections. And all of these individuals build up a possible base of people that you can reach out to and can potentially help them, or they can help you. So when you're looking to invite people to connect with you, the most important thing that you can do is add a reason as to why you want to connect with them. So there's a little button that says add message or add connection message. And if you don't do that, I would hazard a guess that 9 times out of 10, when you ask to connect with someone that you don't really know, they're probably going to reject that connection request. So really simple thing is to mention how you found their LinkedIn profile and why either you can add value to them or perhaps what you're asking from them in return. So let's think about the kind of people that you could be adding into your network. We've got friends and family, we've got colleagues at university or college or school that you've been to school with. And then, of course, you are alumni and you've been through the program with 10K interns, and I'm sure you've done some kind of an internship. So it's pinpointing those people in the organization that you've worked with in any internships and bringing them into your professional network as well. So you can search for people by names, but you can also search for people at companies that you might be interested in working for, or perhaps in certain industries as well that you're potentially looking to work into. Now, this is really, really important. So you've got your connection message that you get to send when you ask someone to connect with you. But then I'm going to suggest that you also send a follow-up. So when someone receives that invite to connect with you, they probably see that message and they carry on with their day. So the next port of call is to then send a follow-up message once you're connected with them. And really, you want to be really, really clear on what your ask is here. So perhaps you really admire someone's career and you'd like to ask them for a 15-minute or 30-minute virtual coffee chat to understand more about their role and how they got into that role. Perhaps you've applied for an internship at someone's company and you'd just like some advice to understand a little bit more about the culture or a little bit more about what they're looking for in their new hires. Anything like that is absolutely fine. Just be really upfront. Don't ask for too much time. Keep it brief and concise and just be really clear about what you're asking people for. Now, we're going to talk about jobs, but I just want to remind you how important the past slide is that I saw to you. I'm going to show you how to apply to jobs, but if I'm being really honest with you, how I've got all of my jobs up until date has been through my network. So I got my job in recruitment from my brother's friend who was working in recruitment. And at LinkedIn, I connected with every recruiter and every sales manager at LinkedIn in London and Dublin until one of them took the time to meet with me and then actually announced, oh, did you know we are actually going to be hiring for someone soon? We just haven't posted that job on LinkedIn just yet. So I am going to show you how to find the jobs, but I really want to make sure today that you understand that if you are just sitting and applying for jobs, it's not the full picture. We need to be really, really proactive in finding jobs for ourselves. So I want you all to be thinking that you are your own recruitment consultant. So when you log on to LinkedIn, you'll be able to tell recruiters that you're open to work. So essentially what that does is it creates a banner on your profile. It will tell people what you're interested in. When people, like my clients, all of my clients are recruiters. when they're using a recruiter tool, which is the tool they use to find people on LinkedIn, they will see the information in terms of what job titles you're interested in, perhaps what industries you want to work in, and any other information. So don't be afraid to turn on open to work. It will get your profile noticed by far more recruiters. And then you can search for specific jobs. So the most important part for this cohort of people is the experience level. So you can search via internships if you're wanting to get more internships, and you can search via entry level and senior and so on and so forth. So have a play around with that. Once you've created searches for jobs that you're interested in, if you press the job alerts button that's highlighted here, it will mean you'll start getting emails, I think every 24 hours, of new jobs. Now, why that's really important is what I'm seeing at the moment is my clients who are posting jobs are getting record levels of applicants to these jobs. So what I'm hearing from them is after about 100, 200 applications, they're sort of parking that search and dealing with the candidates that have already come in. So if you are setting job alerts up, you should be one of the first candidates notified of these potential roles, and we can get your application in really quickly. And then something that's really interesting. So we said not all companies will post a job on LinkedIn or anywhere, to be honest, until perhaps they're slightly further down the hiring process. Perhaps they're just sort of sourcing out what kind of candidates they need at the moment. So if there aren't any jobs you want to apply for on a company that you've identified as a company that you want to work for, you can go onto their company page. So you search them up there, you go to the About section, and there's a button here called I'm interested. And that will mean, here is this tool that my clients use, the LinkedIn Recruiter tool. When they're running searches for people like you, they will often filter via candidates that have already expressed interest in their company, because they know it might be a more seamless hiring process. So make sure you're expressing interest. And then obviously follow the company. Like if you've got an interview coming up with a company, or perhaps it's a company you really want to work for, when you start following companies, that's the kind of updates that you're going to be getting into your newsfeed, so your homepage of LinkedIn. And this will start to surface more and more relevant information to you about their culture, about their mission, their vision, and it will allow you to get more information. So when you do have those interviews or those exploratory conversations with potential hiring managers, you've got some content to back up. So you've done your research and you understand a little bit more about what they do. And if you have been to university, I would imagine that your university has a alumni page or a page on LinkedIn. And there is a section, once you search in your university's name, there's a section on the left-hand side here. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but I am pointing, and it says alumni. So if you go through the alumni tool, you can actually filter via people that went to your university, that live in London, that work in finance, and maybe their seniority level is senior. And that will allow you to find people to bring into your network, send them a connection request explaining why you want to speak to them, mention that you went to the same university and you're really keen perhaps to understand about their journey from that university to the current role that they're in. So that's a really good warm introduction for you to be finding more people to add to your network. Another thing that Ash is probably going to cover a bit later, but just a quick point to note is hashtags are really important. So companies might not be posting jobs on LinkedIn, but they might be posting status updates like this, where they're using hashtags internship, freshers, students. So start following some of these hashtags on LinkedIn, which you can see on the right-hand side of your page. And that will start to hopefully get you notified of some roles that aren't posted as jobs, but could be potential interest to you. Okay. We are coming on to the content creation piece. Julie, are there any burning questions in the chat that need to be answered now, or should we move on to Ash?
I think there's some questions just about, there's one about being in between industries and how do you showcase that on your LinkedIn page? Which I think quite interesting.
That's a good question. So Eleanor mentioned about adding an industry to your page, and that is new. So how recruiters currently find people in certain industries is it will be based on the most recent position that you've had. So say I work for LinkedIn, that's my most recent position. LinkedIn has chosen to represent itself on LinkedIn as a company in the internet industry. So I will then fall into all searches in industry. So if you're in between industries, pick the most relevant one. But if you also add things like skills to your profile, that's how most people are searching for candidates, is skills. So make sure all of your skills are filled out. If you've got lots of words repeated in your profile. So say you're interested in manufacturing and engineering, mention manufacturing and engineering lots of times on your profile as well. All of those things will be feeding into the recruiter search when recruiters are searching for you.
Perfect,
Great.
thank you. I hope that's helpful. There's one about, I think it's been dismissed. Yeah, okay, no, that's all. Thank you.
Fab. Right, I'm going to hand you over to Ash. The most awaited part of this session. We're really, really lucky to have him joining us. So thank you, Ash, and I will pass over to you.
Thanks, Paige. Hi, everyone. My name is Ash, and I'm a community manager here at LinkedIn. What that means is I manage communities, work on content creation, and ultimately help people develop and I guess stand out. I've actually seen a question around how you can stand out, and I think I can try and cover this in a slightly different way. And that's really my main focus day today. It's working with our members to understand how you can use LinkedIn differently and what tools you can use to make sure that you're doing exactly that and standing out. So if we jump to the next slide, we'll see here I've put my kind of career journey in this path, and it's been a bit like stagnated across. But the reason why I put it in there is bar my first job, which I got through my mum at Tesco's. I then got every single job after that via LinkedIn, but it was all via a connection. So the business development executive was from a previous friend at school. The Google apprenticeship that I had, again, was from an old apprenticeship manager that I had at my previous company. The connection that I made at Google referred me to Mediacom, and it's literally spiraled like that. And the reason I'm at LinkedIn today is because someone I worked with at GVC, I then worked with at Teropium, my previous company, and he referred me into LinkedIn. So building your network and making sure that you have this relevant, wide berth of audience that you can reach out to and ask these questions to and let them know, look, I'm in the space for work. You're in a role that I'm interested in. Would you be able to refer me? 9 times out of 10, it does the job. And you can see in my case that I wouldn't have had any other role that I've ever worked in if I didn't know specific people at that time. So that's really, really key. So what we can talk about here is the opportunity on LinkedIn. And I think when you speak about LinkedIn, people think, okay, what are LinkedIn? What is this platform? Is it a recruitment platform? Is it a connection platform, social media, editorial? And it's kind of all of those. And it's really, in some ways, quite complex to know how to start, because LinkedIn is a really big platform. We've now got over 1 billion members. As Eleanor explained earlier, we've got tons and tons of opportunity, and there's really big scale. And what we're looking to do as an internal company is make sure that we're creating economic opportunity for every member on the global workforce. What that basically means in layman's terms is whether you're a CEO, an apprentice, or everything in between, there is an opportunity for you on here at LinkedIn. And what we're trying to do as a team internally is help you understand what those opportunities are, how they're relevant to you, and how you can go out and get them. So LinkedIn is positioned quite uniquely in the landscape. So some elements to it is social media, and I think that's kind of really my core focus. It's working more so on that content creation element, which sits more so with social media. But then we have an editorial team who post news, job updates, research, very similar to your Bloombergs, your Financial Times. But we kind of hybrid the two positions there for our team. And what we look to do is think, how can we take these opportunities coming in from our publishers, utilize the tools that we have from the social media aspect, and help give you what you need in terms of being a member on the platform. So on LinkedIn, it's very broad, and the platform was built for everyone to have a dynamic opportunity. And what LinkedIn is all about, it's networking, it's streaming, you've got talking about your weekend dinners, you've got insights, scheduling, everything that sits into this circle and more is what LinkedIn is used for. And what we look to do is make sure that you're curating and understanding who your audience are. We have algorithms now that show you the direct content that you engage with and learn from. So your feed will be completely different to my feed, whose will be completely different to the next feed, but it will be relevant to you. So that's why it's really important that before I've started talking, all of these tools that you've heard from Annabelle and Eleanor are really key to put in place, because it really helps understand from a platform perspective, okay, this is what you're interested in, this is your expertise, and these are the type of people you need to connect with. So making sure you do that groundwork at the start is really, really key. So what does your content look like and what do our members want to see? So if we jump to the next slide, we've got a little activity for you. So if you, I think the chat should work. If you just drop into the chat, when was the last time that you updated your profile? So number one being a really long time ago. Number two is when I just interviewed. Number three in the past year, or number four in the last week. I'd be keen to see what some of you can say here. Okay, so I've got 2, 4, 3. Okay. Long time. Okay, nice. So it's nice to see that some people are fairly engaged. We've got some content going out, which is great. Because like I say, that's my role completely, content. So the fact that you're posting already and you're sharing updates and engaging with your profile is great to see. So if we jump to the next slide, please. So in terms of what our members want to see and what they find most engaging, it's members that find engaging content that is grounded in knowledge and advice. So what that means is we don't want people coming to LinkedIn and mindlessly scrolling like you have on some other social media platforms. We want people to come to LinkedIn when they want to learn something, they want to connect, they want to engage, they want to better themselves. So content on this platform is really, really key to be focused in knowledge and advice. So if you're thinking about moving into that space, tapping into your expertise and tapping into your knowledge is really, really key when sharing that content. So in understanding how you get started, and I appreciate in some instances, it can be very difficult to think, how can I speak from a point of expertise when I'm so early in my journey? But something to remember before I carry on my slide is that no matter what stage of the journey you are at, you are one step ahead of someone else behind you, and they want to know how you've got there. So if you've landed a role at a university that you liked, someone's trying to get into that uni and wants to know how you've done that. If you've got an internship, someone wants to know how you did that. If you're a senior manager stepping up to a CEO, someone wants to know how you did that. So no matter what level you are at in your journey, you have some level of expertise to speak from. So we've got some 4 points that really help you look and understand how you would get started and how you sort of define your audience. So firstly, you want to understand your own TAM, which is a total addressable market. So what is your niche? What's your area of focus and how are you going to address these people? And then you can ask yourself, why is this relevant to this conversation? So if I'm speaking about creator economy news and social media, and I'm giving updates about the football on the weekend, there isn't much relevancy there. But if I'm focusing on creator economy and I'm talking about the new Sidemen releases or what's happening with TikTok and the UMG partnership or anything like that, that's really relevant to that audience and it aligns with my experience. So that's me understanding who my addressable market is and how I can create content around that. You can then ask yourself these questions around, why are you creating this content? Why is your opinions valid on this point? Where is your knowledge coming from? All of these sections and all of these questions help you really understand how you can be seen as an expert. And by sharing this consistently, it helps you build up your addressable audience and people understand, okay, this is the type of content I can expect from you. And this is the reasons why I'll follow and engage. So how would I get started? So firstly, what I would look to do is understand what we call our loyal fan base and our 10 fundamentals. So by building a loyal fan base, that's your kind of key area to make sure that you have an audience that will come back on a consistent basis. And our fundamentals are sparking conversation, making sure your content is interactive, being consistent. I'd argue one of the most important ones is that consistency element, making sure your targeting is switched on. Are you inspiring people? Is it shareable? Is it discoverable? Is your content accessible, one that's often overlooked? And is it open for collaboration? By ticking all of these boxes, you really kind of build out a process in terms of understanding, okay, this is the type of niche that I'm speaking in. This is how my content looks, and this is opening it up for further conversation. I'm not just putting updates around, this is great to see, I'm really happy to see this. I'm giving a really clear breakdown of how I'm going to spark a conversation, what my call to action is, and how I can make the post interactive. Me doing this on a consistent basis so people know to return week to week or day to day to see my content. Making sure that these fundamentals are ticked off will allow people to share your content. And as a byproduct, that will naturally build your network without you having to do too much work. So we spoke about professional brand, and something that we speak a lot about here in LinkedIn also is our personal brand. And I feel like it's become a bit of a buzzword in recent times. But ultimately, what personal brand is, and I think Jeff Bezos put this in a really good way, hence why we've quoted it here. He said, your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So if someone was describing you that hadn't met you, but they'd seen your LinkedIn, how would they describe that brand? What would you fall into? Would they say you're a Gen Zer that speaks about social media? Would they say you're a sports enthusiast? Would they say you're an athlete, an economist, a financial person? What would they speak about when describing you? And that is what your personal brand is. So what you can start to do is think from an outsider's perspective, look at your content, think about where you want to get to, look at some other people, some successful people in the place that you think, okay, these are the type of content that I like to engage with. These are the type of people that I aspire to. What does their personal brand look like? And what can I take from them to put into myself? So if you're interested in doing that, you can start to ask yourself how you would define that. And what we have at LinkedIn here is something called the 3 Vs. We also have the 3 Cs, and I think the 3 Bs, we love creating things into threes. But the 3 Vs is vision, values, and voice. So firstly, you ask yourself, what is your vision? So what's your long-term goal when you're creating content or started to create content on LinkedIn? So start with that. Then you kind of work backwards and say, what are some core values that are true to you? So making sure that you're not just creating content for the sake of engagement's sake. You're really holding true to what your personal values are and making sure that that's coming through in your content. And then finally, you have your voice. So this is what your tone of voice is. Are you taking a comedic approach? Are you taking a serious approach? Are you taking a very factual approach? What does that voice look like? And once you have these threes defined, you can really start to build out what you look like. And once you have what you look like, that gives you an idea of your personal brand. You can kind of do this early on in your journey, and it's something that you can refer back to as and when you need to make sure that it's still in line with what you want to achieve. Sometimes that changes, but then also making sure that the content you're creating is in line with those points. So why is personal branding important? And I think that was a question we saw earlier around how do you stand out? And I think this is where content comes in to really elevate what we're doing here at LinkedIn. So if we look at it at a plain sense, I've graduated university and so has my friend, and my friend has a bustling LinkedIn profile and he's posting every day about the social media updates and the creator economy, and he's applying for jobs in social media companies, but our CVs are very much the same. And I'm a recruiter and I come and see his profile and there's tons of content. There's a big network. He's posting engaging conversation. He proves he's knowledgeable in this niche. He is going to stand out much more than me as if I've just got a post with a picture and then nothing else in terms of what I'm doing. So that's how content can really help differentiate you from that competition, because it's something that's very often overlooked. So it helps you stand out in saturated places. It helps identify you outside of your profile picture, and it allows you to build that trust in the sector. Like I said, if I'm a recruiter recruiting for a social media role and this person has no direct work experience, but they have a year's worth of content speaking about social media and showcasing their expertise, straight away that builds that trust before the job has even started. So definitely something to think about if you're starting to create content. And we're back again with our threes, and now we've got the 3 Cs. So what the 3 Cs are, if we go to the next slide, is content, conversation, and consistency. So content is focusing on content that's relevant to you, whether that be from an engagement standpoint or a posting standpoint. Try and keep your niche and your subsector as relevant to you and your experience as you can. I think engaging with and creating content in one sector and then trying to focus on a different sector and then speaking in a different sector, especially in early stages, can be quite detrimental in terms of growing your network. So really understand what your niche is and what you want to kind of specialize in and lean into that in those early stages. From a creation standpoint, be transparent and open with your views. So like I said, we don't just want everyone posting the same thing. Back to the point of your personal brand, by being transparent and open with your views, it allows you to stand out to that point and being able to differentiate your voice versus someone else. And then we have something on the next slide, which I'll speak about shortly, which is using segments and pillars to help define a strategy. We then have conversation. So conversation is one of the most important things on LinkedIn. Not like other platforms, we don't just want those vanity metrics of likes and shares. We really want that conversation element. So think about what your call to action is at the end of the post. Ask people to respond in the comments, let them know your thoughts. And when you get those comments coming in, take the time to respond. Try and avoid thanks, this is great. Open up the conversation further, because a little hack, if you will, is if someone comments on your post, that then reaches out to their network and says, Ash has commented on Patrick's post, and then you can see it here. And then if you comment again, that continuously pushes it out to my network. So you can kind of build out that engagement piece there. So making sure you're sparking that conversation is really key. And then finally, I would argue across all of these points that have been spoken about today, consistency is the most key here. Whether you're trying to apply for jobs, whether you're creating content, whether you're updating your profile, being consistent with that is really key. Across all social media, we hear really leading names, Mr. Beast, Logan Paul, KSI, whoever they are. They say you can post 100 times, and then the 101th time, that's the time when the first post starts to gain a bit of traction. So it's going to take a lot of time to build out this groundwork, and overnight successes are sometimes take 10 years for that to happen. So I'm not saying it's going to take that long, but what I'm saying is by being consistent and showing up consistently, setting a cadence that works for you, whether that's once per week, daily, every other day, set a cadence that works for you and stay consistent to that. Come back, engage with your audience, post consistently, and over time you will see your network start to build, and then that inspiring elements will come back to continue to create your content. So in terms of your content, and if you want to get started on this and you're thinking, how do I start? You can ask yourself some simple questions. So what content do you enjoy creating? Is it video? Is it photos? Is it news? Is it blog posts? What do you enjoy creating and what do you enjoy consuming? And that can be your starting point. You then look at what your content aspirations are. So what's the reason for you creating content? Is it to stand out against competition? Maybe you need to post once a week, for example, speaking about industry news relevant to you. Is it to become a content creator? Then you'll maybe have to increase that frequency. So what are your aspirations, and why is it important for you to create? Favorite creators currently, I think this is really key. If you've got a section of creators, whether it be on LinkedIn or even on other social media platforms that you really enjoy, why do you enjoy those? What do you like about their content, and how can you bring that into yourself? And then finally, what formats do you enjoy using? If you're very native to creating video, lean into video. If you're really good at taking pictures, lean into photos with some text. Think about what comes natural to you and lean into that. So here are some content pillars, and these are really good to help you stay consistent and post over time. So these are used across the board, and I have conversations with CEOs for massive corporations and also people that are just leaving university, and this concept works well for everyone. So firstly, you have your reactive pillar. So what is your niche that you're speaking about? Again, to myself, it's creator economy and social media. So I'm being very reactive to that news. Today, I saw there was an update that TikTok and UMG are partnering. So there's not going to be that copyright issue with music on TikTok. I'm going to speak about that post because I'm being reactive. There's going to be conversation that's happening on the platform already around that. So how can I put my name in that hat and make sure that when that conversation's happening, I'm in the mix to take advantage of those reactions and comments that are coming in. We then have personal, and with LinkedIn, we don't necessarily want to see what you've been up to on the weekend, what you're doing with your friends. That is nice to have, but personal content more so means what's my personal journey. So how I spoke to you guys at the start around how my journey started from Tesco, from a referral to my mum, and then got led all the way to LinkedIn from a friend that I made 2 jobs prior. That's a personal journey to me that I can speak about. So speaking about your personal journey, how you got to do what you're doing, this experience with 10K interns, it's personal to you. What did you learn from it? What are your takeaways? That's that personal advice, and that would typically take up the bulk of your content. And then finally, we have business or education. So if you're at uni or you've just started a job, what is it that you learn? What are some stories that you can speak about that you've learned recently within that role that you can tap into? So by having these 3 pillars, what that allows you to do is build out a bit of a strategy and understand, okay, if there's no reactive news happening today, I'll speak about my personal journey, my personal experience, my personal thoughts. If there's nothing that I need to speak about there, can I speak about what I've done in my day job or what I studied today at uni or whatever position you're in from that element? And then it allows you to have a consistent cadence that you can create content around. So here is some examples of what I like to see in terms of those entry posts. So getting started. So we have a guy called Callum, who is a ex-content creator, doesn't really create too much content now, but he owns a production company and a brand called No Two Ways, a sneaker brand. And he come to LinkedIn, and I think he'd done a really great intro post. So it's easy to read, no large blocks of text that take real time to read and can kind of deter a user from wanting to read. There's a clear plan of action. He spoke about his next stop and where he wants to get to, and then there's a good call to action at the end. So asking who should he follow. In terms of how this can be elevated, it doesn't always need to be line by line. So rather than having those big block text, sometimes people can go what we call broetry, where it's just one line, one line, one line, one line. You can maybe split it up a bit more and utilize bullet points a bit better, maybe increase the intro. So rather than just saying, I'm coming to LinkedIn, I want to give it a go. Why is now a good time to do that? What's the reason you've chose LinkedIn? You're now a business person. LinkedIn lends itself well to that. Those are some points that he could have done to elevate that a little bit further. But overall, very strong post. Again, in the second one, great entry post. So this was from a creator that I worked with called Shola. She now advocates for Gen Zs in the workplace, but this is when she just started working at an agency called OMD, and she kind of wrapped up her first 3 months in at the business. I think it's a really, really good way if you're starting a new role to really leverage that experience. So you've got easy to digest bullet points, you tap into personal experience, and she uses a great scroll stopper. We love a scroll stopper at LinkedIn. That's an image or an asset that's going to stop someone scrolling and take the time to engage with your content. So think about how you can utilize this yourself. One thing that I would say of this post is that you can think about improving the hook. So the first 2 lines of a LinkedIn post are very, very important, because that's the 2 text that you see before it gets truncated, and you have to click that little see more button. So really think about, is that first 2 lines bold enough and loud enough that it's going to capture and hook people into my content? Not saying that this is bad, but you definitely could have spoke about, I'm living my best life because I've learned these 3 things from OMD. So it gives that tease for people to think, okay, what are these 3 things that she's learned? So really thinking about what that hook is and why someone should click see more and engage with your content. And then with the lists, some of the points are what we call a little bit fluffy. So I had an amazing day, or I meet my inspiring team. Say that stuff, but why was it an amazing day? Why are your team so inspiring? What do they do? That's how you can really stand out from just posting good content and then posting great content, giving those insights. So you're not leaving the readers with tons of questions. You're kind of thinking before you post that content, is my content opening up to questions that I can answer before I need to post that? So having that in your head is a really good thing to think about when creating content. So what would be some next steps? So I would invite you all, I know a lot of people on this call have actually posted already, which is great to see, but if you haven't, I'd invite you to create your first post. This can be a simple, hi LinkedIn, I've joined recently, I've had a session with the team at LinkedIn speaking about how to create content, and I'm here to speak about X, Y, Z. Or you can speak about recent wins and learnings you've had at uni, or what you've done in the 10K interns. Really have a think about what that is and post some content, and it'd be great to see. Start commenting, engaging, and expanding your network. Expanding your network also doesn't just mean connecting with loads of people. Like Annabelle said, make sure you're connecting with people where there's a relevancy. That first and second degree connection is really great. And then also we have followers on LinkedIn. So by creating content and having a base connection, you'll start to build up your follower base, and they're slightly different. Connections are people that you connect with where you have a direct connection, maybe a friend, a family member, or a colleague. A follower is someone that thinks you've got great content and follows you. You don't necessarily have to connect back with them. So start thinking about how you can build and engage and grow your network. We have something here internally at LinkedIn called LinkedIn Thought Leadership Sessions. It's run by myself and my team here, and I can send around a form to the team to share this afterwards. If you found this interesting today and you wanted to dive even further into content creation, you can fill out that form, and then we run those every kind of 3 to 4 months. So I'd love to see some of you on there taking part, and hopefully that will help give you some further tools to create content. Take time to engage and connect with the LinkedIn members. So us here at the team, take time to connect with us. Love to see the content that you're creating. And then finally, test new formats and styles. So we hear all the time people get sucked into just creating text-based content because they're not comfortable to try something new. So test and learn. It doesn't have to be right from the start. You might create a video and it flops and you found it awful to do, but then your next one might come really natural and it really might take off. So be open to testing, be open to things failing, looking at maybe why something didn't work, and going back to the drawing board is a really great tool when creating content on LinkedIn. And then that's me. I've added my QR code because I thought it was cool and maybe it might work. So if some of you want to scan that and connect with me, I would love to hear from you. And I'd love to see some content that you create. If it doesn't work, I'll send my link round afterwards so you can connect. Because yeah, I'd love to hear from how you guys found it, what you guys are doing on LinkedIn, and how any way we can help. There's myself. I have 3 colleagues that do the same role as me, building communities, and we're constantly looking at how we can help build out the platform for people here at LinkedIn. So if you have any questions around content, community building, anything like that, please get in touch because we would be more than happy to help.
Amazing, Ash. Thank you so much. And that was actually one of the questions, how they can connect with you. So thanks for answering that. Amazing. I thought personally it was extremely useful, and really appreciate. One of my kind of takeaways from that is very much about how LinkedIn and the platform and the network emphasize value over content, over likes and engagement. And I know from my own personal experience that before you post or during a post, there's this expectation that people will like and engage, and what if they don't? But as much as possible to kind of detach ourselves from that and really lean into who you want, who do we want to read this post? Who do we want to attract with our content? What value do we want to add to that network? So as much as we could really emphasize value over virality, if you like, that would give us that ease to start posting and creating content. So that's kind of one thing. And another thing that really stands out from your presentation is very much these 2 buckets of content that we can engage with. One is the industry side. So anything to do with the industry that I want to go in, try and speak as if you're already in it. If you've read an article that belongs to that content from that industry, try and kind of summarize it, but also give your take on that. So you can add something. There was a question about how can I stand out? You can stand out by being you, by showing your opinion. And don't shy away from doing that, or industry content in the sense of the company that you want to work with. So highlight their product updates or anything exciting that they're doing. So start engaging with them in this way. So that's kind of one bucket. And the other bucket that you've mentioned is very much around us as mentors. You said something really powerful at the beginning, that everybody has someone who is just behind them in their journey, even if we're just beginning, or someone who is facing similar challenges. So whatever we say on the platform can really inspire and empower other people. And I think with that mindset, we can get confidence to talk also about our achievements, our journeys, and act almost as mentors to other people. So I thought these were 2 kind of highlights for me from your presentation. So thank you. There was a question here about what is accessible content?
Yes, good question. So accessible content is ensuring that your content is accessible for all users. So in part of one of our weekly sessions that we run, we have an accessibility expert that comes in and talks about how you can make sure the content is accessible. So one of them, and a really great tip, is what we call camel case hashtags. So that's where you hashtag and you capitalize the start letter of each word. So for example, if you write hashtag puppies laughter, but you don't capitalize the P for puppy and the L for laughter, screen reader reads that as puppies slaughter. So you have to make sure that you capitalize it, because then people using screen readers are able to hear the hashtags as you need to. Using emojis in place for words is again a really bad thing for screen readers. So if someone's using a screen reader and you use what you think is the splash emoji, but it actually means squirt, it can mean a very different thing. So not knowing what the meaning of an emoji is can really hinder the user journey of people that are using different features to make their content accessible. And finally, something that's really important, when you're creating or sharing images, you can add alt text. So if someone has visibility issues and they can't see the picture clearly, with an alt text and a screen reader, it will describe what is in that image, what you can see, and again, how it can be more accessible. So these are some tools, and there's tons and tons more. We could run a whole session on how to make content accessible, but these are some little tools that you can start to implement to ensure you're elevating your content so everyone is able to engage.
Great. Thank you for that. There's another question about, is connecting the same as following? I'm happy to take this one and let me know if I'm missing anything here. But basically, when you're connecting to someone, you are part of the network, so your first connections. So anyone from their network also becomes your second connection, which then gives you kind of an entry point to their network. And you also see their feed and they see your feed, or at least things that are relevant to both of you. The kind of the algorithm kind of highlights that. Whereas if you're following someone, then you only see their feed. You don't have any entry necessarily to their contacts and their connections, and it's only one direction. So you only see their feed, but they don't see necessarily any posts that you're putting up. Did I describe it correctly, Annabelle, Ash?
Yeah, and I don't think you can direct message someone you're following. I think you need to be connected with them. So if you're asking people for coffee chats and stuff like that, you want to do the connection.
Yeah, that's right. If you're not, yeah,
press the arrow, the drop down arrow, and connect. But as I said, please give a reason as to why you want to connect with that person, so it doesn't get lost in the abyss.
Absolutely. Would you say it is best to stick to work office hours for posting, Ash?
I personally don't think it matters too much on when you post. The good thing with LinkedIn is that there's a much longer lifespan of content. So unlike TikTok or X or Instagram, where you get 30 minute to 1 hour window, LinkedIn content's lifespan is a lot longer. What I would say is try and stick to a time that works for you and be consistent to that. So if I'm posting one day at 9 a.m, then 12 p.m, and then 11 and 10, and it's all over the show, it's really hard for my audience to know when to expect content from me. Some people find it easy to post early in the day, so it's there ahead of time. Lunchtime is another good one, and then just after work. So I wouldn't worry too much about when it is. I would just find a time that works for you and be consistent to that. On that point, we also get should I post on weekends a lot, and we actually find from our own news content we actually get better traction on our posts sometimes on a Saturday than we do on a Friday or a Thursday. So I wouldn't really be too worried about when you're posting, as long as you've got a consistent schedule and the content is strong, sharing knowledge and sparking conversation, then yeah, posting at any time is fine.
Great. There's another question. Can you please summarize the 3 key things you would suggest someone to do when they make an account? Who wants to take that?
I can take that one. So once you've created your account, the first thing you need to do is get your profile complete, because if your profile isn't complete, there might be questions over whether you are really the person you say they are. So if they can't see your picture, if they can't see your experience, they just see a name, they might not know who you are. So get your profile really complete, make sure it's all been checked and you're happy with it. Then the next stage is to start building out connections. So you can use your email contacts to build out some connections for you first and foremost. That will come up as an option, and then start finding all of the people you've worked with, all the people you've met, everything like that. And once you start building out a network, then is the time to start posting, because people will actually see it, right? So build your profile, find your connections, start posting, and then apply to some jobs.
Fantastic. And there's a question here in the chat. If how you connect to people that you're interested in their field, but you don't know them. I just kind of, one tip from my own experience is I start following them and I start engaging with their content, but in a meaningful way, not just liking, and as much as possible adding my insight. And then I try and think of ways that I can either add value or perhaps ways that I can engage with them more on a personal level. So for example, I could approach them for a connection and say the truth. If I'm looking for a job in their industry, I'll say it will be amazing. You know, I've seen all your content, I've read it, and I really like this and this post, for example, to really show that you've engaged. And then I'd love 20 minutes of your time, if this is what you want to achieve from that. If it's just a connection and access to their, you know, network and content on a more regular basis, then again, you could use that kind of text, but without that ask for informational interview. But as I said before, and I think this is a really good way to close it, LinkedIn is a place where people expect other people to connect with them and expect other people to reach out with professional asks. And the only thing is how you do it. And if you do it from a place of really transparency of what you're trying to engage with and ways that you can potentially help other people as well, then that I find that really works. Anything you want to add on that before we close? Or do we have 10 more minutes?
We could probably take a few more questions.
Okay.
Alan, you'd have to jump, haven't you? So I can mediate this Q&A. Ash, there's a good question that's come in for you. How can you manage talking about your side business with showcasing yourself to potential employers based on your degree? So we've got a side hustle, and then we've got a main career path.
Yeah, really good question there. So I think two parts. So one, being able to run a side business in itself while studying for a degree or doing anything else and having a side business is commendable in itself. And I think employers would like to see that. So posting about why you started that, your entrepreneurial spirit, the elements you've had of growing that business, the trials and tribulations, just speaking about career and entrepreneurship in general lends itself great to LinkedIn content, right? So having some content created around that is great. Then being very candid and open and sharing the bulk of your content around the industry that you want to work in. So if that's a finance space, sharing your content on that finance news or updates or businesses that you want to join, and that takes up the bulk of your content. So then you kind of look at it from a recruiter's perspective. If they're coming to you as a finance recruiter, you want to go into finance, and they say, okay, you're very knowledgeable in the finance industry, you're constantly creating content around that, but also you've been able to scale and grow this side business, which is in its own right successful. You're a very strong candidate versus someone that has just a CV that's gone in. So being able to showcase those two elements, I think, work really well. And LinkedIn is a careers content platform, right? So speaking about anything to do with the workplace, jobs, entrepreneurship is perfect for the platform. So kind of splitting your time and content across both ends, I think, would put you in a really good spot.
Thanks, Ash. Another question. Does that mean we can't use emojis on LinkedIn?
No, please do use emojis. And I think I should have cleared that up when I said that. So what we try and ask you to do is don't break text up with emojis. So if you're going to use them, either put them at the start of a sentence or at the end of a sentence, because again, think about that accessibility standpoint. If I'm using a screen reader and it's all clear words and suddenly there's 4 emojis that don't have any relevancy in terms of how they are used, smiley face, laughing face with crying tears, sad face, and then back into the text, it just makes it seem weird. So if you're going to use emojis, less is more. I'd say save them for maybe 2 to 3 per post. Something that we do at LinkedIn when we create careers content is, as a bullet point, we put the little light bulb symbol. So light bulb and then text, light bulb and then text. So then it would say light bulb emoji and then read the bullet point. So that can be a good way to use it. So definitely do use them. They do elevate content really well. Just try and not break text up with emojis.
Thank you. And what makes a really good profile? So I can take this one. Just going back to some of the points that Eleanor covered. So you want to fill out as much information as possible, right? So even all the way down to recommendations as well. So if you've done any internships recently, you want to get a recent recommendation added there. But really what you want to be thinking about it is it's not your CV, it's your LinkedIn profile. But if a potential employer was looking at that, instead of having your CV in their hand, would that be enough for them to want to invite you to an interview? So all of your experience that's relevant, your ambitions, so in the headline, what you're aiming to achieve, recommendations as to why you've done some great jobs recently, and a really up-to-date career history with, if you've got perhaps some experience that isn't relevant to the field you want to go into, but you can twist it slightly. So say you, I don't know, had some customer service experience, but you want to go into legal. Think about how maybe you manage like customer disputes and things like that, and put that kind of experience in your profile as well to try and bring that into the relevancy of what you're trying to apply for right now. But really, like, a complete profile is really important, and a semi-professional headshot. So my husband needed a new photo the other day. We didn't have a professional photographer in hand, so I stood him in front of a white wall, nice plain background, and just asked him to stand slightly side on so it didn't look too staged, and smile, and it looks natural. So you don't need to overthink it. Just find a white wall to stand in front of, and get some good lighting. My degree, this is a great one. My degree is in an industry that I'm no longer interested in. How do I market myself to another industry I'm interested in? So I have a psychology degree. Didn't really love it, to be honest, and I now work in sales. So I don't do any statistics work, any cognitive neuroscience or anything like that. So I hear you. But I focus on what I've learned in my degree. So when I applied for my first sales role, which is in recruitment, I tried to speak about how some skills from psychology overlaid it. So I was like, look, I'm a real data-driven person. We do data-driven recruitment. Like, you just need to find a way of spinning it, right? And there will be some transferable skills. So use that and just really break down what your degree was in. I don't know many people that use their degree in their careers. No one I know anyway. So I wouldn't worry about that. Just focus on the path that you're on, and make sure you're building out a network in the industry that you are interested in, and just be really clear on what you can add to that industry and why you want to work in that industry. Would it be advisable to connect with people in the industry of your side business as well as the career you're interested in? Ash, do you want to take that one?
Yes and no. I think it depends on the aspirations of the side business, right? If this is where your true passion lies and one day you want that to become your full business, then I would start to build a network around that. If it's something that you're doing on the side purely to get you by for a time being until you land your dream role and then it will stop, then maybe I wouldn't lean into it as much. So firstly, I'd ask yourself that question. And then, yeah, if it's the case that is something that's really going to eventually take the stronger hold in your career path, then definitely build a network around it. What I would say is try and not be too over analytical with like who is in your network, because having a broad network is what's key. I think when creating content and building a voice in a content space, if you're creating things about so many different niches, it's going to be hard to grow. So focus your content on a niche. But in terms of connecting and having a wide network, that won't have too much impact, because the algorithm will show me the content that's relevant to me. So if you're creating content about finance or social media, that will show it to those relevant people in your network, and then the people that maybe not as relevant to, they won't see it. So I wouldn't be too worried about who you should and shouldn't connect with. As long as there's some element and there's a reason you're connecting, then I think that ticks the box to make some engagement.
Thank you. And we've got one last question, so we'll leave it after this question. But Ash, I think this is one for you. Any suggestions on penetrating a particular industry with content creation? Are there any analytics with the hashtag that draws attention from key players within the sector?
So hashtags are not as strong as they are on other platforms. I think hashtags are good to help categorize content, but it definitely doesn't amplify reach as much as some other social media channels. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. The key thing, and if I could say one tip, it would be consistent with your content. Those that show up every single day creating content in a niche are the ones that have the most success, versus the ones that maybe create one amazing post and then you don't hear from them for 2 months and they create another piece of amazing content. So really focus on that consistency, and over time that will help shape who you are as a content creator. So understand what your niche is, understand who you're targeting, and then be consistent with that content creation. And over time, that will help build out your network. There's no like little hacks that you can do, unfortunately, that will help elevate it more. If you're engaging and creating consistently, that's the best tool to take.
Amazing. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ash, for joining us.
No
We're
worries.
very lucky that you could. We don't often get people from the content team joining our call, so thank you. As Ash said, there is a link to some of the sessions that his team are hosting as well. So please follow on from that link if you are interested in some of the sessions that they host. We would love to see some of you there. I believe Julie will be sending the recording out for anyone that wants to watch this back, and I'll make sure that the slides are sent over to Julie as well. Have I missed anything, Julie?
No, we shouldn't have. So like what will happen is, I know I spoke to Ash and he said he will send the follow-up link to the training and whatnot.
Ah,
So yeah, that's everything.
great. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thanks, everyone.
Well, that's a wrap. Thank you, Annabelle, Ash, and Eleanor, for a great session, and we all hope that you enjoy this webinar. If you haven't already, don't forget to make your first post, as it's a great way to engage and expand your network, and a link to the Thought Leadership online training course will be sent in due course. Thanks,
Awesome.
guys.
Thanks all.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.